Bonjour, y'all. Nola Butterfly here on Wednesday morning, 9:52 a.m. of September 11th. And here we have Hurricane Francine, and she's coming up on the shores of South Louisiana. So we're going to do some radar analysis and check her out here. So this is the water vapor at cod.edu.satrad. And we can just see she's approaching. Okay, there she is. Not quite on land, but her outer bands are. And probably have water vapor releases here. But I'm not doing that analysis. For more on that, you can see my Weather War 101 interview that I did. It's on my channel, and it's out there on his channel. Rest in peace. Allegedly, he's passed on, but he has years of capturing water vapor pop-offs from wet surface air coolers, adding moisture and localized water to the water vapor content. But that is not the object of our inquiry today. We are checking out radar and seeing what they are doing. So that's the water vapor. And this is the updated path as of 7 a.m. today, just a few hours ago. It'll be passing through here. This is the projected path. So let's see what the radar is doing to steer the storm, what we notice, and it looks like it's going to be going close to the Hammond radar. Hammond is over here. Is that what's driving it, or is it being led by the radar up here? So let's take a look at the radar maps. These are okay. So we had KLCH, Lake Charles. When the hurricane was down in here, it was down. By down, I mean it was not energized. Energized radars make a high pressure area that weather cannot go through. It has to go up, it has to go around it, or it gets broken up if it does go through there and kind of microwaved out. These are on demand, and I'll be pointing them out on the radar here in just a second, but we're checking out where these radars are that we'll be checking out. So we had Lake Charles that was open earlier, and we've got this is an old map. It shows KLIX, which used to be in Slidell, a little bit to the northeast of New Orleans, but they recently moved it to the northwest of New Orleans in Hammond, north of the northwest of the lake area. That is to the north of us. We're south of the lake that used to be part of the Gulf of Mexico before the drainage system of the United States after the snow melted, after the Ice Age, created this debris that we are now on in the delta here of New Orleans. So KLIX is now the Hammond call letters and more over here. So we will be checking out KLCH, although it's not relevant anymore because the hurricane's up in this way, and there is a general traction up towards this way. There is a jet stream, which they probably manage with ionospheric heaters such as HARP, but not necessarily just HARP, because there's many of them across the globe. But all of these are little mini ionospheric heaters, low, tropospheric, upper tropospheric, and up to the low ionosphere. These can affect, and these are the ranges of them, although they have gotten stronger over the years. I know that the KLIX radar that was moved supposedly has a higher wind tolerance, because as the storms go through them, because of the energy being pulled into it, they sometimes get taken down. Like during Hurricane Katrina, KLIX was taken down. Hurricane Maria in, was it Puerto Rico? Hopefully I'm not getting that wrong. Yeah, that was taken out. It had a direct hit All right. And most of the hurricanes we capture are pulled into the radars directly by the eye of the storm, which is statistical impossibilities. Now, all of these radars pulse and are responsible for creating checks and balances that move the energy around and create our weather on a daily basis. But it becomes very obvious when you have a storm system such as a hurricane, because then you have triangulation. But there's other ways that we have triangulated on the radar, and we have shown this in our World of Hot Water documentary and in my Clear Skies conference presentation, which YouTube is not allowed up. So you'll have to catch it on my rumble.com/user/Nola Butterfly channel. It's up there, and I have an Odyssey I am starting to move things to as well as a backup. So let's check it out here and see what these radars are doing. So let's check out KLCH. Well, let's just check out. This is where this is at. So this is the Lake Charles radar. This is your Hammond's radar, and this is the one just north of that in Mississippi. So if you think about it, if this is pulling up and that's pulling up, then you have twice the strength, kind of like back to back. But this could be pulling from this direction. So it would miss going into here directly if this one is feeding it primarily. They're all pulsing and creating peaks and valleys for energy to go through. But which one is doing the actual conveyor pulling with a beam that energizes the path and strips ions from the incoming storm, not only heating up the pathway, but stripping the electrons, which further intensifies it on the back end, because more electrons stripped is more condensation nuclei for water vapor to form around. So these microwaves are one part of the managers of water vapor, which is the most prominent greenhouse gas on Earth, not CO2, sorry. By far, water vapor is the most abundant and most significant driver, but we ignore this because we say there's nothing that drives water vapor except an increase in CO2, which raises heat, and then consequentially, as a secondary thing, makes more water evaporate. But that's not true. We know that aerosols and microwaves or electromagnetic frequencies absolutely interact with water and manage and affect it, deliberately or accidentally. So they need to be considered in that climate narrative. So here we have KLCH, Lake Charles. And it's, okay, so you have your two rings, right? You have your two rings, ring around the rosy here, and the greater ring, right, lesser and greater. So the blue, the radar, this is the radar right here. The blue that is around is the energizing. Okay, and it is not, if it was fully deployed up to the second circle, the second ring around the rosy, it would be completely blocking it. It would not allow any energy to come in. And this is not what we see. We do see a very small blue within it would still be considered relatively small if it was within the up to the first circle, but it's even smaller than that. So it is definitely allowing a pull up. Now, do we see can we capture any beams? There is a negative space beam here. I haven't quite figured out what the negative spaces are. They're not direct pulls. You can see it's, allowing these outer bands to come through. All right, so we have this. I do not see a beam. Now, beyond that, you could have these balloons outside of planes, right? Because I think the planes create mostly a boundary layer when they're not doing other things like dispersing payloads of different kinds. I'll be careful what I say because I do want this to stay up on YouTube. There's a lot of different reasons and seasons for the spraying, outside of just accidental pollution. But they also have, per the work of Casey Nunez, balloons that could cloud seed, and they are more drone-like. They can stay in an area, they can seed it, they can kind of go back and forth in one little area versus a plane that has to move across and have a lot of them, and they're more inconspicuous. But Casey Nunes has pointed these balloons out, and how where they are one day, the weather will be extreme the next day in that hyper-localized area. So they got a lot of tools in their toolbox. I'm not here covering that. What I do cover is the Doppler radar. And the sooner this work goes viral with specifically how this is done, the more eyes will be, the more watchers there will be, the more eyes there will be on this, and the harder it will be for them to continue this. Eventually, there will be accountability. And that's what I'm hoping, that this work, the work that I've done since 2017 exposing this, along with the others who have shared in this, goes to a point of human consciousness where they can't do it. Just like, 7 states are doing anti-geoengineering legislation at this time to ban geoengineering, aka chemtrails. Likewise, we want Doppler truth to end the manipulation of our skies, especially for non-benign purposes. Okay. So here we have, and it's hard to have benign purposes because in weather modification, there's always winners and losers. And if somebody gets the rain, someone else gets deprived of it. And it's like a knitted sweater. You can't pull on one end of it without another part being affected, right? So here we have allowing it in, allowing this to come up. But is it feeding it? Let's see. Let's move on now to, we're going to move to the Hammond one. And the Hammond one, call letters, is HDC. It has been fortified. See, it's instead of being over here where it used to be in Slidell, it's now over here. So anything coming into it would be putting us down here further east of the storm. So I would hate to see a storm coming up the river this way being pulled into it, because the rough side of the storm will be pushing water up the Mississippi River, and then New Orleans would get some serious flooding, especially if a levee were to be taken out like it was during a particular storm, or at least like many have heard. If you talk to the residents in the 7th Wards in New Orleans, they'll tell you they heard explosions that day. Okay, and it wasn't the barge going into the levee. They were explosions. All right, so I'm just telling you what people say on the street. You don't have to believe it, but that is the case. So what we have here, this looks like we have a little beam, but it's not very well defined beyond this area, so I'm not sure that this is the beam that I look for. But this too is a small a small blue. So we have definitely, it is allowing this energy to come up. It is not blocking it, right? I've seen storms stop just shy of the coastline, like right over here, just die right here because the blue just killed it. There was no feeding. There was high pressure, and it just went dud as it was coming in to the Outer Banks of the KLIX radar before. Okay, that they totally can control it. So the fact that they don't is already an intention. But this one they're letting in. Now I do not see a beam. Let's check out one more radar here. Now this would appear to be a beam. I saw this yesterday. This may be just a normal feature, this negative space. Usually what I see is not so much a negative space as an actual beam. But they have cleaned up the technology a little bit, so sometimes it's a little bit harder to make out, but there's usually a betrayal, especially as the hurricane comes closer. You can see a beam. And now the Doppler's own literature warns the operators not to point a beam in a direction for too long, as it could have environmental effects. Now, you can argue what those environmental effects could be, but there's definitely no reason we should be seeing a beam pointed into a hurricane for hours and days prior to the storm coming into it. And definitely once the storm comes into it and then goes from it to another radar, even making 45-degree turns or moving backwards into it, that demands answers, that begs for people to ask the questions. First of all, there can't be any answers if there's nobody that's asking it. Now, I've done this work. People said, well, why don't you, push this into, make a case and go to court? I'm like, I have already done this work, and I have had great harassment over the years, especially when I first came out with this. I've since been very suppressed. I've had my channels taken down. I'm viewed as not a threat because I'm so censored that it's just ridiculous. And as much as I've harped about this, if I can make a pun here, about and try to put this on the radar, my work has not gone viral enough, although there are more people talking about Doppler radar. So it has seeped into the greater layer of consciousness, but not enough. People are still saying HARP is, messing with the hurricane. No, it's Doppler. HARP messes with your jet stream, but the weather cannot be managed daily if it was not for all these little guys. I mean, you think HARP can manage the weather all over this area? No, it could just direct a region or two, maybe through arrays or a few of the Earth's atmosphere, but not all the tropospheric daily checks and balances, pulses of the whole continent and of the whole world. That is a lot of area to cover. You need these little puppies to help the mother, the HARPs, the ionospheric heaters. So, here, okay, so we're in KHDC, and now the Mississippi one. Yeah, I mean, they're all small. They're all allowing it in. So we can see what the other radars are doing. And so we could see that this one is allowing this to raise up. But this is also, if the general pull of the jet stream goes this way, right? It goes up into here. Like that's what HARP would be making everything pull up into that area, like heat up an area here where everything pulls into that area. And then these up here, all these other smaller radars can block the flow of the stream. So everything has to go around it to get back up to the main heater. Because there is a conveyor belt. It's going to move into this area. Right? Let's say that, just pointing to this because that's as far as our map goes. It's going to pull into this area if HARP is heating up that area, or whatever ionospheric heater is heating up that area. And then these will create, all these other ones will create the checks and balances where the weather that's like, if it's here, it's going to, and all these are blown out. They'll have to go around it or up above it to get back in the flow over here downstream where the vacuum is leading everything into, right? So let's check this guy out. Which one do we want now? So we have this and we have that, and here, which way did they say the hurricane is going? Boom, 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 North Mississippi. Well, that's the radar we saw was in here. Oh, so there's going to be another one, Central Mississippi. Is there a radar here? Then it would be NQA or GWX. NQA, so it would either be going into this one or here, but no, it looked like it was going up this way. So LSX, SGF. Let's see. It will pull this way because the conveyor belt's trying to push up that way. So which ones are the feeder ones so that it follows the path? This one looks very low. Just as far as what I can see on this map, it's not very detailed, but there's no activity around here. So I'm kind of, but there is activity here. There's, they're saying it's going into this point, Arkansas. Okay, we're talking about Tennessee. That's the Arkansas-Tennessee border. That's where they're predicting. Now, that doesn't mean that's where it's going to go, but then there is this cone of uncertainty, right? At that point, it's just a depression. It's not a big deal. It's just some inclement weather. So it would, yeah. So this is like the, let's check this out. And I'm sorry that some of this is redundant. I always like to explain the fundamental basics to the newcomer. There's so much more to this. We've triangulated in wind waves and other things. Please find my Clear Skies presentation on my NOLA Butterfly Rumble page, rumble.com/user/NOLA Butterfly. It's a few videos down at this point. Or you can go to the Clear Skies Conference Rumble page and look for my presentation, NOLA Butterfly, aka Raphael O'Neill. This one has some pulsing and is relatively small. It's not up in here. So it is doing pulsing. It is coming out. Might have a little, not sure. It's not very clear. But we can check that radar out later on. It's still too far out. I mean, technically, if at the last minute they put up a big wall, then it'll stop it. But if they're letting it be small at this point, then they are, they're pumping it. It's one of the main pumps. It's creating the valley that the weather must follow, especially if the other radars are pumped out. Now, we'll check out the other radars to see if they're more of a blocker, to see if we can find the peaks versus the valley. This is it looks like a valley right now. Now, I wanted to capture one thing, is the wind wave that comes across it. When they shrink the energy, the blue, and they shrink it, you'll see wind coming into the radar because they've energized this and then they release it. All that heat raises, there you go, and there's the wind that comes across it. Did you see that? So when this is full on, this is energizing, and then they drop it and shrink it, all that heat raises out and energy rushes in towards the middle because it created a vacuum, right? There he goes, and that wind came across. All right, just wanted to point that out. That's another way we triangulate over the radar. This stuff I've never been debunked. I've been ridiculed, but not with any debunk. I've been threatened. I've been ignored, censored, but not answered to. You're right. You just gotta say. Let's see. What's this one gonna do? This one should be, unless it's helping pull right now and it's gonna block it later on, it should be a blocker. But it depends also how big they want the storm to be. So they can have a few of the other radars allowing the edges to fill in, but then giving it a block as well so it doesn't come fully in. Yeah, that one is beyond the first circle. Is it going to be shrinking a little bit, but not Yeah, a little bit. There is some pulsing. But it is a little, almost to the second radar here. And let's see what this one does here. This is totally random, off the path, just to compare. Because these should be part of the peaks where some pumping and then getting up around past that. It does pump it. Let's see where on the timeline it is. Okay, it was small and now it's growing out. Yeah. A lot of, but it is pulsing. It is pulsing. That's very small. That would be allowing it in, but then it goes back out. It doesn't stay on the small end. Whereas, now let's go back to this guy. Whereas Lake Charles is staying in the inner ring. Staying in the inner ring. Staying small. Staying allowing. It doesn't go out here. It doesn't pulse hard like that. It is allowing the moisture to build up and to come up. And the Hammond one is inside that, stays inside that circle. It is really, and then it might go out to the circle, but it's not really, it's pulsing, but not beyond that first ring. All right? It was like definitely not wanting to stop it. There's no pulsing beyond that first circle. So the pulsing is like peristalsis in the stomach. You know, the stomach moves the digestion along by various cramps, release, cramp, release. I mean, not like you want to cramp, but like constriction, and release, and constriction and release. That's why you drink a hot tea and it gets things going. And cold constricts, so then you're not going to have, if you only drink cold stuff, you know, that's not good for digestion. But I don't know if that was the best metaphor, but you know, they could just leave it down and it would come up. It would, I mean, they control the speed too with it. If they left it down, it could just come through. So when they pull back up, it'll slow it down. I mean, that's what happens. Or it could break it up if it's too big, right? Because it might still come around because of the conveyor belt it's on, but it would have to either break up or go around or, you know, lose its momentum. So there's definitely an allowance on all these radars, and This one north of the Hammond radar is a little bit beyond. Let's look at the timeline on this. It gets smaller here as the time progresses. So as it's this way, it's closer to right now. So it's small, it gets bigger, and then they shrink it down again. Okay, so this is part 2 of our analysis, and we will continue doing this as long as we don't lose, power, because we're actually on the trajectory. But there you go. Francine being fed through the pulses of the radar. Okay, stay tuned, guys. And be safe. God bless. Blessed be.
Experiments in our sky.